Welcome. This is PsychB. I am currently a first year psychology doctorate student, and I have a bachelor's of science in psychology. And what we're going to be looking at today is if grades matter as far as an undergrad goes. Um, I would say absolutely. Um, it kind of depends on what your goals are. If your goals are employment, then um, it only matters so far as recruitment goes. So if that's point A, then yeah, you're obviously looking at C's get degrees, and you end up with a graduating grade. And good luck to you. I'm sure you'll be fine. Um, there's a lot of great prospects out there. I believe most of them are, 40 to 50K for entry level as far as get into fields such as just everything a psychology degree gives you, which is a lot broader than people expect. It's not as useless as anyone would claim. The people that you know that are, I don't know, using their psych degree to wash dishes pretty much aren't using it right because, um, yeah, you can definitely use it to apply for positions in a lot of social work scenarios, a lot of kind of administrative assistant scenarios. You can use it for some government work scenarios as far as like the FDA and using that science background to be able to understand what makes something good or bad as far as I don't know, them giving you the threshold of is this healthy food to eat or whatnot. Yeah, typically there's some overlap with biology students, but not so much. It all has to do with understanding the science and what they're looking for as far as a bachelor's science background. So that's great. Yeah, just get that degree. Do it. As far as going forward from that, if you're looking forward to anything involved in the field, be it clinical or otherwise, you are looking at a kind of a higher threshold of what's useful as far as your academic background. And yeah, it's for a master's, I think a lot of them have a threshold of 3.0 probably is pretty basic, but yeah, 2.8 to 3.5. 3.5 is really the high end. That's getting more into what they're looking at for kind of higher level programs, which if that seems high to you, a 3.5 seems high to you, I don't really know how to argue that since a lot of people aiming at those programs are gunning for way higher. So, but yeah, with a 2.8 to a 3.5, you're looking at a lot of master's programs. You probably have a lot of good experience as far as your academic record and um, I don't know, good experiences as far as connections you've made and things like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly fine range of scores to get, and if you have to take the GRE, uh, yeah, right in the I don't know, between the 30s is probably a good place to be as far as above the 30th percentile, and you don't really have to get much higher than 50% there. I certainly didn't as far as a doctorate program. Um, but getting into those kind of higher level programs as far as a, PsyD or a PhD, you're definitely looking at 3.2 or higher. And I do believe that sort of fits the framework of what they're looking for as far as engagement goes. Uh, it's not really a lot to do with selling your soul to the GPA because, as we all know, GPA, what that mostly means is the fact that uh, you showed up and you showed up every time and you did all the reading, and you probably got above a 80% on all the quizzes and exams and things like that. A 4.0 is far from perfect. A 3.8 is far from perfect. A 3.5 is far from perfect. The main thing that that GPA gives credence to as far as your college experience is probably the fact that you were engaged and that you engaged with the material. And no one cares about perfection. I've never heard anyone even in, and I don't know, I've spoken to admission counselors and plenty of people who have gotten in and graduated and given letters of support, letters of recommendation and whatnot. And yeah, no one's really aiming at perfection in these fields. It just more has to do with, how does it look? And if a certain level of, academic scoring, that can be used to compensate for other kind of shortfalls that may be in your sort of academic resume, as far as like me, for example. I am a non-traditional student. I had absolutely nothing to do with anything resembling sort of on-campus activities. Uh, Besides, I don't know, I had my own thing going on with a certain club, but that wasn't even on my, that was kind of too little too late. But, there's a lot of diversity programs, psychology clubs, other things that you can get into that certainly make you look engaged. And what engagement looks like to people who are looking in as far as resumes, it just makes you look like that you give a shit. And if you look like you don't give a shit, then that kind of translates across. And so how does a high GPA correlate into compensating for not looking like you give a shit? Well, it looks like in a certain scenario, it looks like you were engaged in other aspects of your academic life, including using that GPA to get into research groups and becoming a research assistant and things like that, because that's mostly what it's used for in psychology. As far as before you graduate, you just kind of build enough of a network of, hey, I'm a solid student, I get good grades, your instructor thinks that you're a solid individual, and you get referrals to work with other research clubs and not clubs, but groups, and you got your own little crew to work with, and that's pretty much how, as a first, second, and third year student, you get into the kind of baseline into getting research publications that will get you into a PhD program and things like that. So yeah, when you look at your GPA and whether or not it's valuable for a utilitarian purpose. It's not necessarily valuable as far as something to brag about. There's really nothing to talk about, having a certain score. So yeah, it'll help compensate for certain things as far as getting into a PsyD school that's more practically based. And, you need a sort of a demonstration that you're a good student to get into a practical-based program, because you probably don't have as much research going into it as far as demonstrating what you can do. So you're pretty much looking for advocacy from your instructors and your own grade point average to demonstrate that you're a good student and that you can handle the workload. As far as being in a more PhD mindset, as far as doing your own research and things like that, the GPA gets you into that mold and helps support your own development in a bachelor's thesis, honors thesis, things like that. So it's useful, getting the goodwill of your advisors and or getting referrals to research to even begin the process of uh, yeah, putting some papers under your belt. As far as employment goes, GPA probably helps get your foot in the door if it's a benefit. If you don't have a great GPA, don't even mention it. It's not important. But yeah, so if you want something to separate yourself out from the crowd, getting a cum laude or 3.5 plus, that's certainly a good way to at least in this area or many other areas, getting a military institution to look at you and things like that. There's plenty of jobs there for psychology, a lot of government jobs for psychology. And finally, if you're not looking to progress with the field at all and you're just going through the motions, then no, don't worry about it. Just, escape with your C's, get degrees, and hey, rock on. There's plenty of opportunities for anyone with a bachelor's degree. Don't let anyone tell you that it's impossible to pay off your loans with a psychology degree. They're just lacking in imagination, and that's not me spouting any kind of weird boomer bullshit, because I have never met anyone that found it difficult to find the work they were looking for. And I'm not talking about bootstraps. It's just I never found anyone that had trouble finding the look or the work that they were looking for if they networked enough to find out what their opportunities were. And I think that's the part that's intimidating, and that's the part that sounds bootstrappy, because it's, for some people, it's really hard to get out there. And I'm not saying it's the individual's fault if they, spent all this time and money getting a degree and they just haven't gotten it together yet and haven't put the pieces together. Maybe they're not sure what they want, and that's fine. But yeah, as far as it being like this impossible task that everyone goes through, I really do think that that's a minority of people going into college and especially graduating. And so, and if you want to, disagree with me about that in the contents, I'm more than willing to hear you out. And I won't even disagree with your lived experience, because I certainly believe that that's completely valid and that happens to people. I've worked with people that, that have, masters in health services and, you know, go their own way, and that's perfectly fine. But hopefully they don't end up embittered about it, or I feel like they were wasting their time, because hopefully there's a spot for everyone. And I'm not talking about under capitalism, I'm just talking about with pursuing what they felt passionate about when they engaged with the topic in the first place. So to put a bow on it, yeah, as long as you're engaged with your education, as far as psychology, grades do matter, and they matter to the extent that they matter to you. And that's not a non-answer. That's specifically the truth. And I think a lot of psychology students would understand that level of phi level, PHI, and that's an intensity level going from zombie to hyper aware. And if you, it's not about personal responsibility, it's about engagement. That's all I have to say about that.